You know, if I were ABC News, NBC News, or CBS News, I'd be pretty freaked out right about now because Donald Trump is putting them all on notice. Whoopi Goldberg, especially. There's a new head of the FCC, Brendan Carr, and guess what? He's moving up all these complaints that Biden had buried about the mainstream media and their bias, because guess what? Nobody trusts these organizations. Welcome to the program, everyone. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, hit the bell. It's really important. I am Trish Regan, and wow, it's like one thing after another. We have a lot of news to get to, but Trump's new FCC chair, Brendan Carr, is basically putting back into the program all of those complaints against ABC, NBC, and CBS over the campaign coverage. A lot of people had a lot of problems with everything that went down. A lot of organizations had a lot of problems with everything that was going down. I mean, how many times do we have to hear all that negativity and negativity that wasn't even around policies, right? Just around character. Oh, he's basically the second coming of Adolf Hitler, effectively. I mean, that's what they told us, so we don't have to go through the sound again. I've played it for you many times, but that's part of the problem. So now the FCC chair is like, you know what? It's not cool. And you guys are networks. And guess what? We have jurisdiction over these networks. So people like Whoopi, watch out.
And we're having a conversation. Yes. And we're going to go back to it. But before we do, I just want to say, this is the beauty of people who have different opinions. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes we're messy. And I don't know if you noticed that when I came out this morning, I had trouble trying to figure out, because there was nothing in the thing. There's something in the air. So just know something is chewing on us.
You know what's in the air, Whoopi?
What's
Trumpism. We lost the election. Wait a minute. We lost the election. We're miserable. Half of this country is miserable. And let's just tell the truth. We hate that he won. We hate it. And everybody's uptight and crazy right now.
Well, then I'm going to say to that machine over there, you stop blaming me. You do what you're supposed to do. You bring up the words I need to say. So what I need to say is, we're going to go back to the convo that we were having.
Must we? All right, go ahead.
Okay, you get that? So she's in trouble. This is after the election that aired in late November, early December. And basically, Joy Behar, Sunny, a lot of them are willing to double down, but Whoopi Goldberg knows she's in a whole lot of trouble. Why? Because she's one of the ones that just couldn't stop spitting every time she said the president's name.
You know, you can't refute anything with him, because he just, when I say him, I mean...
He rambles.
Trump.
Yeah.
He tends to just...
But can I mention one thing? Because Trump is out there calling...
Did you say his name? I said his...
You get it? Okay, so Whoopi Goldberg does not like Donald Trump and has said many things. The whole show is just a disaster. It's like an anti-Trump fest. They even have an audience that applauds whenever they say something anti-Trump. You catch that? So there's a theme there. The only problem is they are broadcast on federally owned airwaves. And when you get this many complaints as they have been getting, suddenly the FCC, in this case Donald Trump's FCC, is taking notice of it. And you know what they can do? They can revoke their license in all of those local stations all across the country, because ABC is there on those local stations, courtesy, effectively, of U.S. government-owned airwaves. And so you can't really totally lose the faith and trust of the American people and have extraordinarily biased news that effectively, during Joe Biden's tenure, became state media. Can you? When the U.S. owns the airwaves? Remember how many complaints there were over Vice President Kamala Harris, presidential candidate Kamala Harris, going on to Saturday Night Live on NBC right before the election to try and give one last hurrah? Well, you know, there's this other thing in network television called equal time, and you can't give all the time to Kamala Harris and no time at all to Donald Trump. Although I think if you look at the numbers, it was something like they did in many cases at these networks, at these network evening news programs, they give enough time to both, but 99% of the coverage would be negative towards Donald Trump, while 99% of the coverage would be positive towards Kamala Harris. That's what they call equal time, I guess. Not. There's so much bias filled in there. And all of these complaints were registered, and Biden just washed them away. His FCC said, we don't care, it's freedom of the press, whatever. It's not really because they were just doing what Biden wanted them to do. And so now Brendan Carr's saying, okay, I'm going to revive all this stuff. I'm reviving all this stuff because you got a bunch of nut jobs in the media. I mean, nut jobs like this guy.
She gets sick and tired of me trying to understand other people and being so pragmatic and trying to be like, I'm okay, you're okay. Now, where can we meet in the middle? La, la, la. On this question, we're past that. You can't meet. If they voted for Trump in 16, whatever. They voted for Trump in 20, they knew exactly what they were doing. If they vote for Donald Trump in 2024, and I've said it on my show, I'll say it here, they're knowingly voting for a fascist. They're voting for a racist. They're voting for somebody that wants to put this country 200 years in the back. And so I'm not trying to figure them out. I'm trying to figure out how we get people out who love democracy, who love freedom, who love the rights of all Americans, how to get them to the voting booth. Because that's how we save our country.
Of course. I don't know, Joey, how you're going to save your network. Your network, which is in a whole lot of trouble. NBC is in a lot of trouble. MSNBC is not governed by the exact same set of rules, but their ratings are so bad that they're in enough trouble. And Comcast just wants to get the ATLL away from them that they're spinning them off. So there's this thing called SpinCo that MSNBC is going to be part of because guess what? They're losing money and they're hurting the mothership vis-a-vis Comcast shareholders. They're like, good riddance. We don't want to have anything to do with you. So MSNBC's in trouble. CNN's in trouble. I'm going to get to that in a second because massive layoffs came today. And ABC, Whoopi Goldberg is in trouble. Bob Iger even got a letter. Bob Iger is the CEO of Disney, and Disney is the one that owns ABC. So Bob Iger got a letter even before Brendan Carr went in to run the FCC just a few weeks ago and said, you know what, there's been this erosion in public trust. Well, if there's an erosion in public trust, then maybe we shouldn't be revamping or renewing your licenses. Think about that. So he's citing all this polling data, and he said ABC's own conduct has certainly contributed to this erosion in public trust. For instance, ABC News recently agreed to pay $15 million to President Trump's future presidential foundation and museum and an additional $1 million in attorney fees to settle a defamation case. Remember that one? Because Georgie boy, Stephanopoulos, was on his political weekend show saying that Donald Trump was something that he was never convicted of. I'm not even going to say it, okay? Like, let's just, it's so gross. And so yet he knew he wasn't supposed to say that because he knew it wasn't true. His producers warned him repeatedly, and yet he said it anyway. So there's a defamation case, and Bob Iger settled. So Carr's like, okay, you guys have a problem. You got a really big problem. Television station license renewals, I'll point out, they are pro forma. Licenses are typically rarely contested. But you know what? There's a new sheriff in town. This is a whole new ballgame. And essentially, typically, they're never denied. But you can deny them. The FCC can absolutely deny them. And Trump has said he would like ABC and other broadcasters to lose their licenses. So the FCC, which runs this whole thing, basically allowing them to have these ABC licenses, the FCC can take those things away. And I'm wondering if that's what's going to happen. Let's go back to the letter. Carr says in the letter to Bob Iger, the approach that ABC is apparently taking in these negotiations, they're talking about the negotiations with the local stations to get the ABC content, which they're charging them through the nose for. And Carr's like, why are you charging so much for this junk on the airways? It concerns me, he said. My understanding is that ABC is attempting to extract onerous financial and operational concessions from local broadcast TV stations under the threat of terminating long-held affiliations, which could result in blackouts and other harms to local consumers of broadcast news and content. So he's getting after him. He's taking the side of the stations here and saying, ABC, you are the problem. And then, he also points out that Disney's only big concern is not those local stations and the quality of their program on the local stations, but rather their streaming business, right? Because streaming is the only thing that makes money. Streaming is the future, etc. So he's saying you guys are focused on streaming at the expense of all these local and freely accessible stations. And so, quote, the fact that a massive trust divide has emerged between local news outlets and national programmers like ABC, include The View in that, only increases the importance of retransmission consent revenues remaining available for local broadcast TV stations to invest in their own local news operations and content that serves their communities. In other words, they don't need ABC. He's saying, get rid of ABC. We don't need this big, cumbersome, lousy network going out there and broadcasting all kinds of you-know-what to all these local stations, the local stations which the people trust. Why are you dragging them down and charging them all this money for shows like The View? It doesn't need to happen. Shows where Whoopi Goldberg spits when she says the president's name. I mean, come on, Whoopi Goldberg, where she accuses Trump of being so anti-gay that he's going to break up families, etc. I mean, it's bonkers stuff, okay? Like really, really bonkers, conspiratorial, nutjob kind of stuff. So Brandon Carr's not having it. Donald Trump's definitely not having it. Oh, we have more. We have more, guys. We have much, much more because guess what? CNN is laying off hundreds of people as they try and restructure in this environment because nobody watches their network. And one of the guys that's going to be a big casualty would be one Jim Acosta. You know who I'm talking about. But before I get to that, I just want to mention something that's kind of important right now. You know those tax cuts? It's really, really important that they continue. And right now, it's not entirely clear that they will. Not entirely clear. I mean, we'll see what this Congress does. But, Americans for Prosperity, they've been all over this. They've been, obviously, as you know, I talk to them quite regularly, a very effective grassroots organization that's trying to do what they can to protect the American economy and American dollars, especially your hard-earned money. And the reality is such right now that if Congress does not act, guess what? Those Trump tax cuts that we all love, they're going to expire, and that's going to mean that basically your average family is going to have to pay $1,500 more in tax every year, and this is not good. I mean, Bidenomics took us so far back between the inflation, between all the problems, right, associated with the regulation, et cetera, that came with Bidenomics. We need to transition forward. And I just think about all the inflation that we had. It cost families somewhere around $13,000 extra a year that they just didn't have. And so it's very clear, to me anyway, that this is not the time for higher taxes. We do not want higher taxes. We want an extension of those Trump tax cuts. So it's important we get that. It's critical on the local and federal level to get these. So you can join the fight. AFP is very involved in this. Do what you can. Sign the petition. Go over to, let me see if I put it on the screen. I didn't yet, darn it. But it is Protect Prosperity. ProtectProsperity.com. Go over there. I'm going to put that in the show notes. Here we go. I've got it for you. ProtectProsperity.com, because you know what? They want to take it away. And, if we don't get these, Republicans matter too here. If we don't get Congress to do the right thing, I'm telling you, the American dream as you know it is not going to have the same kind of opportunity. This is very important to Donald Trump. It is very important to me. It is very important to the good folks over at AFP. So go visit ProtectProsperity.com today. All right. What did I tell you? CNN laying off big time. CNN cutting hundreds of jobs, 6% of their workforce, and this is one of the casualties.
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
Well, he may not be working for CNN much longer. Donald Trump's getting the upper hand on that one, coming out the winner. It looks like Jim Acosta is either going to leave the network altogether or he's going to Siberia. That's what we call the midnight show in television news, the Siberia of television news, because the new boss who came in, he used to run the New York Times, so you know where his sympathies lie. he's coming in, he's doing this whole shakeup to the newsroom, and they're trying to get rid of some of their bigger players that maybe earn more money and put other folks in. They're also trying to shift around people that maybe have a very big, very apparent viewpoint, like one Jim Acosta. And so they're moving Jim to midnight, and Jim's not too happy. It'd be midnight to 2 a.m. I mean, that's a crappy shift, right? But you know what? They pay him enough. He ought to be okay with it. No, Jim's kind of upset. So there's a big article saying he doesn't have any time for this. He's not going to do this. He's going to move on. Good luck, Jimmy boy. Remember this? This is this big blow up. I want to show you the entire clip because it was really quite something between Donald Trump and Jim Acosta back in the day. They had a few moments, but this might be the best.
Why did you... Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
Well, he's not going to be working for CNN anymore. Those days are over, it sounds like. But I think I've got the whole thing because it's really just sort of amazing. Acosta, like, he just can't read the room, right? Like, it's very clear, like, you know, it probably makes sense at that point in time to sort of back down just in the interest of being somewhat discreet. And yet he keeps going and going and going. He's like a dog with a bone. He gets kind of impolite. And Trump's like, yeah, I don't think so. You got a lousy network, and you're kind of a lousy person for doing this. And so that was, you know, no love lost there. And so I imagine that Jim Acosta, you know, when he was going on and on, as well as Jake Tapper and the rest of them, about how it was just not okay if Donald Trump won, and they really didn't have any reasons for voting for Biden or for Kamala for that matter. They just couldn't help themselves, however. They just had to keep saying over and over and over again because Trump is that bad.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election to try to keep...
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process. And I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign...
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
Well, that's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, you know, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was
enough.
going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his butt.
Well, I'm not
like
a big fan of
us.
yours either. So
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question, if I can. You repeatedly said
you aren't the best,
Mr. President. You repeatedly over the course of the...
just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President, over the course of the last several days of the campaign, sir.
Man, it was epic, okay? That was epic. Absolutely, positively epic. That was Trump just saying, I'm done with you people. And by the way, he gives them a lot of access that, by the way, Biden never even dreamt of giving or Kamala ever dreamt of giving. But no, he's over them. He's over the whole lot of them. So this is a big deal. This is a big deal. CNN now being forced to lay off hundreds of people because their ratings are in the tank, and they got this guy who comes from print who doesn't have a clue how to run either digital, I'm sorry, or TV. Okay? And so it's like, who's on first? I mean, they just can't get out of their own way. I'm going to tell you what I would do. I'd lean in. I'd lean into the opinion. I know we don't like Jim, but some people do. And you find a place to make that work. I'd also be playing Scott Jennings all day long, right? Because he's got an opinion I agree with and I like. But you see what MSNBC did. We don't like them. They're terrible. And actually their ratings are pretty bad too. But they went and they're like, okay, somebody has an opinion. We're going to own it. We're going to take responsibility for it. Whereas CNN kind of tries to pretend that they're all things to all people and they are journalism with capital J when they are so not. They are so biased. And therein lies your problem. So if you're Mark Thompson, you're coming in there, the guy from the New York Times, you can't just go around and pretend you're something you're not. Just be who you are and own it. Do you know who you are, CNN? I don't think they do. I think they know that they're super left, but they're afraid to say it. So they're kind of in a little bit of a pickle. They've got a predicament. And in the meantime, what's going on? Everything's changing. Everybody's streaming. They can't do it because there's these weird cable arrangements that make it really difficult for them to stream, et cetera. So now he wants to refocus his resources on streaming. But here's the deal. I'm not going to watch CNN if it's streaming either. Are you? Because again, I know that it's so contrived. I know there's a script. I know somebody's reading a prompter. I know that it's, you got to get sanctioned from high on above if you're going to have an opinion on anything. And you have the chance now as a consumer of news to go to so many other different platforms, including this one right here. I'm glad that you're here. Make sure you subscribe. If you're just joining us for the first time, hit the bell as well. But this is the difference, okay, ladies and gentlemen? So this is the future. And it's this like three-way thing, because I'm looking at your comments in real time, which is sort of awesome. And look, I see a lot of new names. We're on at a little bit of a different time today, so it's great to have so many people here. Do make sure you subscribe. It's really important. But this is how everything is changing. And so if you're CNN, you're stuck. You're stuck in like decades ago programming. You've got a really staid kind of environment and traditions and prompters and sets and this, that, and the other. And it's just not working in today's environment. So he's going to rethink all of that, and he's going to fire a whole bunch of people, including, it looks like, Jim Acosta, in the process. Whew. Look, everything is changing. It's awesome. Everything's becoming more transparent, and I think that that's so critical. You used to have the big three controlling everything, and then the cable outlets controlling everything. And now everyday Americans can get access to information in ways that they just never could before. So I'm kind of loving it. I love it. I love it here on the show. I also love this in terms of financial media too, because the financial media obviously has their biases. It's partly why I created the 76 report at 76 Research. We have model portfolios there for you. Look, everything's on fire. The market's up and away. Good things are coming. I'm telling you, America's back, and the whole world knows it. We got to get to Davos too, because this is great. Like Donald Trump telling them all off at Davos. It was absolutely fantastic. All as the market keeps powering higher. So you want to be part of that. It's just $1 a month with code word dollar, DOLLAR. My gift to you for the first 2 months, just $1 a month. You can cancel anytime, so you're not even at $1. But for those of you that really, really want to invest, I want you to go over to the website and also take a look at things like the Income Builder portfolio, because at some point you're going to want to retire, right? Take a look at the American Growth portfolio, Resilience portfolio. We've got all of this great stuff. It's all about growth in the Resilience portfolio. And we have an Inflation Protection portfolio, which is a little like an Income Builder portfolio as well. So that's all there for you. I'll tell you, the media is just bonkers. Did you see what happened on CBS? This was incredible. Quite a dust up, if you would.
Okay. Ask him about going after journalists, which he's also said. I'm interested in the answer to that question.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We'll be right back.
Sure Democratic friends will ask him, and you shouldn't worry about Kash Patel.
Okay.
You should worry about reporting the news fairly, which you don't do when it comes to everything Trump.
Lindsey Graham, you're a guest on this program because we wanted to hear you out, and we welcome you back.
Okay, so this was a dust up that happened over the weekend on CBS News because Margaret Brennan was really pushing Senator Graham on Kash Patel. Like, a lot of people don't want Kash Patel. By the way, John Radcliffe just got announced. He is now head of national intelligence. So that's a big deal. That one got through. That's the second appointment, right? So we have a Treasury Secretary and we have a Director of National Intelligence. But Kash Patel is the guy that they want for FBI, that Trump wants for FBI. And he's kind of got every qualification in the book. I mean, he worked in government before. He's gone to all these fancy schmancy schools. The problem with Kash is that he actually is taking names. Kash means business. I showed you some of the sound before. He's like, I'm going after Mershon. I want to know whether Mershon was Judge Mershon. Remember the guy that worked with Alvin Bragg to get the convicted felon thing on Donald Trump's record. He's like, I want to know how much money Mershon was getting from his daughter, if there were any kickbacks there, because the daughter was profiting off of the entire legal thing, you know, with all the emails that she was sending out. So it was really a very interesting exchange. I'm going to play the whole thing. You got to see this, because she clearly, the reporter, does not have any use for Kash Patel. And Lindsay's like, no, I think he's pretty good.
Quickly.
Well, we will watch the politics of the possible with the very complicated caucus in the House.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the Senate, though, because you are on the Judiciary Committee. Kash Patel, the pick to run the FBI, doesn't even have a hearing scheduled yet. In his 2022 memoir, Bill Barr said of Kash Patel, he's someone with no background as an agent, would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau. He has virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency. The idea of moving him into a role like this showed a shocking detachment from reality. Was Attorney General Barr wrong then and wrong now?
Yeah, he was wrong then, he's wrong now. And I take my advice on Kash Patel from Trey Gowdy, dear friend from South Carolina who worked with Kash. Kash was a public defender. He was a prosecutor. He worked with Trey Gowdy about the Russia hoax. So I do think he has the experience. He has the trust of the president. And we'll see how all this plays out. But Trey Gowdy is enthusiastically supporting Kash Patel, and that means a lot to me.
Well, okay. But he's got a list he's published, Kash Patel has. He published it in a book of enemies. It includes people like the FBI director, Defense Secretary Austin, Bill Barr, former White House counsel Pat Cipollone, former CIA director Gina Haspel, the head of CENTCOM. I mean, do you take him at his word here that these are an enemies list and you're going to put him in a law enforcement role to go after him?
I believe the hearing will expose him to be a very qualified man of the law. He wrote a book. He'll have to answer questions about what's in the book. But I'm ready to vote for him because I know him too. See, you never asked me about the Russia hoax that he exposed. People on the right believe that he was part of the solution, not the problem. You asked a good question of Brett. Has Israel suffered because of this war? They went too far on the world stage. Here's what's happened on the world stage. The International Criminal Court is going to be sanctioned by the Congress, Republicans and Democrats, because they're trying to prosecute the Prime Minister and Defense
Lindsey Graham, this is a far cry from the question about Kash Patel. You took me all the way to Israel from Kash Patel. Are you you're committing to vote for him no matter what?
Yeah. Well,
you are going to vote for Kash Patel?
I won't say no matter what, but yes, I am ready to vote for Kash Patel because you will never ask me the role he played in exposing the darkest moment of the FBI since J. Edgar Hoover. That's why I trust him.
Okay. Ask him about going after journalists, which he's also said. I'm interested in the answer to that question.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We'll be right back.
Sure Democratic friends will ask him. And you shouldn't worry about Kash Patel.
Okay.
You should worry about reporting the news fairly, which you don't do when it comes to everything Trump.
Lindsey Graham, you're a guest on this program because we wanted to hear you out. And we welcome you back, as we often do, anytime, to Legacy Media. We'll be right back.
Oh my gosh, right? So he just handed it to her. He's like, you guys are not fair. You know what? He's totally right. Don't forget, Donald Trump is suing CBS News, her employer, for $10 billion, which is actually more than the company is worth. I believe it's somewhere around $8 billion. Because of this election interference. Remember the 60 Minutes clip where they totally sliced and diced Kamala's answer so that it looked nothing like what she actually said, because, you know, they had to win it for Kamala, apparently. Watch.
But it's
Let's try it again.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Boom. Okay. Pretty simple. You know, he's got a case. And then you go back to what's happening with the FCC, where all these complaints that had just been pushed away are now actually moving up to the top of the food chain. And now, by moving these complaints up, then guess what? Some legal cases could come forward. And you're going to have big problems for all of those big networks like ABC and NBC and CBS, which you just saw. I mean, this is wild. It's about to get really interesting. But you see, I think what Americans have discovered is that the mainstream legacy media is totally in bed, if you would, with deep state. And so that deep state is telling them what they can report, when they can report it, and then they go out and do that. And whenever anybody breaks ranks, they're all of a sudden in trouble. Like, remember the New York Post. The New York Post, who dared to report that Hunter Biden's laptop was kind of a problem, right? And they exposed the entire thing. And then you had Deep State come forward and say it's totally untrue. And then they worked to get their Twitter account shut down. Deep State worked to get Donald Trump's Twitter account shut down. Donald Trump's Facebook account shut down. I mean, this is bizarre. What happened, I think, is one of the darkest periods in recent American history. We talk about freedom of the press. We talk about freedom of speech. Clearly, it didn't exist. It didn't exist, not amongst sort of the elites, right, in the mainstream media. And so consequently, the mainstream media is like sitting there looking at itself saying, well, what do we do now? What do you guys do now? I'll tell you, you're going to get sued. The FCC's get you in all kinds of trouble. And Donald Trump's suing you on top of it. $10 billion to CBS. He was suing for quite a bit of money to ABC. They had to settle at $16 million. It is not a good day for the mainstream media. And you know what? It's about time, because they lied and they lied and they lied and they lied. Think about what they did with Joe Biden. Oh, he's never going to pardon his family. He's too stand up. He's too great a guy. What did he do? He pardoned everyone, for goodness sakes. Family over country. I love this title. Michael Goodwin, really good columnist in the New York Post. Or Joe Biden's corrupt last act as president proved his family hustle always superseded the truth, the law, and the country. Imagine, he writes, if you were one of those gullible people who believe mentions of the Biden crime family were nothing but some Republican fever dream and a sinister plot to smear an honest, devoted father, his surviving son, and other relatives. I mean, he told us himself. Joe Biden said he wasn't going to pardon his son. And he also said he didn't believe in preemptive pardons. He actually said that back as Donald Trump was leaving office. Donald Trump never pardoned anyone in a preemptive way. This is like uncharted territory, guys. Look at the whole list. James Biden, Sarah Jones Biden, Valerie Biden Owens, John T. Owens, the Owens family, related to the Biden family. You get Francis Biden. Oh, Fauci, we're going to put Fauci in there because God knows, I won't go there today, but you know, Fauci. And then Milley, Liz Cheney, because Cheney, Schiff, Kinzinger, other members and staff of the J6 committee were up to no good. So he pardons everyone preemptively. They actually haven't been accused of a crime. They're not guilty of anything. So what are you doing with the preemptive pardons? I mean, this is like uncharted legal territory. This is weird, okay? And yes, he has completely tarnished his image. We know exactly the kind of guy Joe Biden is, exactly who he is, thanks to this.
It's just unseemly. If you're going to do it, have the courage to do it in the light of day and explain it to the American people. It's a stain on his legacy to do it like this.
You bet it is. And even CNN's saying it. That's John King over at CNN. A huge stain. But here's my question. What happens now? So they can't get themselves in any more trouble because they have been preemptively pardoned. So if Congress were to open up an investigation, because don't you think we ought to know I mean, you got money coming in from all kinds of places into Joe Biden and family's bank account. Forgive me, not Joe. It mainly went to Hunter and all of the offshoots of the Biden family. So shouldn't we know what happened? I mean, if Access was actually for sale, don't we need to know that so that we can make sure that it never, ever happens again? If I'm Congress, I'm launching an investigation and I'm asking people. And by the way, you have to testify in that case. You can't not testify. You absolutely have to testify and you have to tell the truth. So now the question becomes, does Congress initiate an investigation? My vote is yes. Donald Trump was asked about this on Hannity's program just last night. Let's take a listen.
She should have dropped out. At least she wouldn't have that moniker.
Before I go to the economy and foreign policy, as long as you brought up this topic, Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, Adam Schiff, who got a preemptive pardon, all these people that got pardoned, Anthony Fauci, did he know that NIH money through the EcoHealth Alliance was funding the Wuhan Virology Lab? There seems to be text and messages and emails that went back and forth. You talk about the unselect committee, as you call it, the January 6th committee. They had a predetermined outcome. General Milley, all these people, the Biden family members. Joe Biden ran and said he would never do preemptive pardons. It was an issue that came up when you were leaving in your first time.
He thought, he heard that I was going to do it. I didn't want to do it. I was given the option. They said, sir, would you like to pardon everybody, including yourself? I said, I'm not going to pardon anybody. We didn't do anything wrong. And we had people that suffered. They're incredible patriots. We had people that suffered. You had Bannon put in jail. You had Peter Navarro put in jail. You had people that suffered. And far worse than that, they've lost their fortunes. They've lost their whatever, their nest egg, paying it to lawyers. And those people... And people said, and they wouldn't have even taken, most of those people, they wouldn't have even taken a pardon. This guy went around giving everybody pardons. And you know, the funny thing, maybe the sad thing, is he didn't give himself a pardon. And if you look at it, it all had to do with him. I mean, the money went to him.
Should Congress investigate that?
Well, I don't know. It's, you know,
you ordered the DOJ.
I've always been, look, he didn't give himself a pardon. And he didn't give some other people a pardon that needed it. And I heard Schiff went to him and just begged him for a pardon because Schiff is a crook. Yeah. Schiff is a crooked guy. He's a crooked politician. He made up the story about Russia. He totally made it up. He was a storyteller. And then after he made it up, they found out that there was a tape of the conversation made by, you know, I guess, the State Department. I don't know. When you make calls, they make tapes sometimes, not all the time.
He was the one talking to the Russians.
So he, in the meantime, made up the conversation, totally made it up about quid pro quo. There was no quid pro quo, just there was a perfect call. Tim Scott was the first one to come. He read it. He said, this is a perfect call. What are you doing? You're impeaching a man for a perfect call. It was Schiff, Hillary, the whole group. You know what? They should. Schiff is just a bad, sick guy. And he went to Biden and he demanded a pardon because he thought he did something. He knew he did something.
Benny Thompson won the chairman of that committee.
Benny Thompson destroyed, along with that unselect committee, destroyed all of the work that took place over 2 years. You know why? It showed that I was right.
We're back with the 45th and 47th.
That was great. That was just great. Again, you know when I'm talking about authenticity and transparency and just realness, he talks like a real person. Or he doesn't talk like some little wind-up doll. He's like, that Schiff, that sick Schiff. I mean, look at what they put him through. Okay, look at what they put the country through. They're the ones that started all this. For goodness sakes, the Russia thing all came from Hillary Clinton's opposition research, paid for by Hillary Clinton. She went through, multiple layers. You had the law firm, which then went out and contracted Fusion GPS, which was, I guess, a bunch of ex-Wall Street Journal reporters that were investigative reporters, and they're digging up dirt, and they're just making up dirt, right? They went out and hired somebody who, by the way, the U.S. government suspected of being a Russian spy. How do you like that? To come up with, it was Christopher Steele who hired him. Forgive me. We got more layers, right? Layers, so that plausible deniability, Hillary Clinton looked clean. But this is all from her camp. The Russia thing, what a total distraction, what a mess that we had to spend all that time on. And then the Hunter Biden laptop, how dare you say that that's Hunter's, because 51X spooks, they told you it's not. That was led by Antony Blinken, our Secretary of State, who was trying to angle to get Biden in there because he wanted to become Secretary of State. Former Deputy Director of the CIA, Mike Morrell. By the way, thank you for the correction, guys. I got that wrong. I was thinking John Radcliffe in his old position was National Intelligence. John Radcliffe getting approved there. He is now officially the new director of the CIA. But you understand where I'm going. I mean, these people were just a bunch of hacks that wanted their team in charge. And I'm like, you talk about Donald Trump being the fascist, Donald Trump being the authoritarian. What do you think you all were? All right, so we need clarity there. And no, he didn't pardon himself. The Supreme Court, though, has said, you can be pardoned for crimes as president. I don't know about VP, though. I mean, some of those crimes might have been committed while he was VP. If his son, right, he was in charge of Ukraine policy, don't forget, and his son got that plum gig, what was it, 60, 80K a month on a board? Like, nobody makes that on a board for Burisma. And what did he do? As vice president in charge of Ukraine policy, Joe Biden Sr. went over there and said, we got to get rid of this guy who was the investigator who was looking into Burisma, the company that his son worked for at the time. I'd be curious to know a little bit more about that. I mean, we got Romania in there, you got China. For some reason, they're all about green energy, green here in the USA, but they were pushing for all these traditional energy types in China, in Romania, in Ukraine, you name it. I mean, this is corrupt, messed up stuff. I mean, at least Joe Biden, forgive me, I was going to say Barack Obama had the decency to wait until he left office before he tried to make a killing on Netflix and speeches and stuff. The Clintons, too, although she sullied her name when she went back as Secretary of State because, her husband was still running the Clinton Foundation, and you wonder what kind of stuff was going on then. But I do think the most egregious of all is one Hunter Biden. And we do need to get to the bottom of that because a bunch of stuff happened. I still want answers. And I think in order to have a clean slate moving forward for everybody, like this is not partisan. Believe me, it's not. I surprise you sometimes because I'm an honest Abe who will just give you my view of the world, which doesn't always coincide with the MAGA position or the Trump position, where I will always tell you what I think. And I'm telling you, just in my heart, what I know, we need to get to the bottom of this because this can never happen again. It is not right to penalize someone and to go after them with lawfare, because they are your political enemy. It is wrong. The ICE raids have begun. Guess what? You know what? They're going after. Tom Homan told us they were coming. They were going to hit Chicago. It turns out they went to Boston first. And there's this Haitian migrant that was rounded up, and he had some words that were very anti-Trump and very pro-Obama. This is not a good look for the Democrats, just saying.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
ICE Boston quickly takes down its next targets, including this illegal alien from Brazil who has an Interpol red notice for armed robbery. This Salvadoran illegal alien charged locally with rape and released by a sanctuary jurisdiction.
Señor, ¿cómo se llama?
And this Dominican illegal alien charged with assault with a deadly weapon and heroin trafficking. Officers also arrested this Guatemalan MS-13 gang member facing gun charges. ICE says he was released from local custody just the day before. Their detainer request was ignored because of sanctuary policies.
Are you kidding me? I mean, finally, we're getting some adults in the room and they're doing the right thing. Or at least trying to do the right thing, because you have some idiots out there that are still trying to say, oh, no, we need to protect the criminals. We need to protect the criminals. One being Comrade Bill de Blasio, who single-handedly, absolutely ruined New York City, okay? Giuliani had things under control. Mayor Bloomberg, he had things under control, okay? He's a Dem, but he knew how to run a city, and he made sure that it was still safe. And then this idiot, Comrade de Blasio, he came into town and it was ruined. Well, guess what he's saying about rounding up these criminal migrants?
So states and localities saying, hey, guess what? We are given the power by the Constitution to govern our own folks. And we're making decisions about public safety. This is something I think needs to be talked about more. Not asking documentation status is actually how you protect public safety.
Excuse me? You protect cities and the public by not rounding people up? And you wonder why the Justice Department is now having to direct its personnel to going after the local leaders and the state leaders that are in the way? Because Bill de Blasio, thank goodness he's not still mayor anymore, he doesn't think you should be rounding them up, criminals like that? Incidentally, the Haitian guy, think about that. That really makes Biden look great, right? He's like, I love Biden. Thank you, Obama, for all you did for me. And F Trump. You know what? Yeah. Well, it is high time that we take our country back. Even if the Bill de Blasios and the AOCs of the world don't like it.
And one of the most simple things that we can do is just not comply. Today, the Trump administration, and also last night, the Trump administration signed a bunch of illegal executive orders. For example,
okay, so she thinks she can just not comply. I'm sorry, because she doesn't like the orders. Can I just say something here? The power the federal government has is to control its borders and to control immigration. That's one of the very stated federal powers. New York is not in charge of that, despite what Comrade de Blasio tries to say, despite what AOC may want to say. California is not in charge of that, despite what this guy, the AG out in California, is trying to say. Who are these people? Did they not read the Constitution? Did they not go to law school? Let's listen to Rob Bonta speaking on MSNBC. He's the AG out in California. He's like the mirror image, you see, of Letitia James in New York.
What's the real world impact, Mr. Attorney General? And what are you hearing from Californians who are afraid?
I'm going to fast forward to the good
presidential
part.
Action.
This is, however, something he promised, right? It's something that you knew was coming, that your fellow attorneys general knew was coming, and you were able to prepare for. I'm wondering what your conversations are like now and what your other major concerns are moving forward. Are you preparing for other actions that you think President Trump will make good on?
That's right. We've been preparing for weeks and months. Our ability to move quickly with our briefs and our filing, and many states working together is proof positive of that. The president did make a promise on birthright citizenship and revoking it, and I made a promise too, and I'm keeping it, that I will see you in court when you break the law and violate the U.S. Constitution. That promise applies here, and it applies to any other action that he takes. We're looking closely at his other executive orders, including trying to use the military for civil immigration enforcement activities on American soil. We're looking at some of the other executive orders, how they impact our transgender communities. And so we expect this not to be the first overreach and unlawful and unconstitutional action by the president. And every time and any time he violates the law, it violates the U.S. Constitution.
Unbelievable.
We will see him in court, and we will stop.
So, and again, he sounds a lot like this lady.
And lastly, I congratulate the President-elect Donald Trump. And if possible, we will work with his administration. But we will not compromise our values or our integrity or our principles. We did not expect this result, but we are prepared to respond to this result. And my office has been preparing for several months because we've been here before. We faced this challenge before. And we use the rule of law to fight back. And we are prepared to fight back once again. Because as the Attorney General of this great state, it is my job to protect and defend the rights of New Yorkers and the rule of law. And I will not shrink from that responsibility.
Pause. Okay, you're not going to shrink from the responsibility, but let me remind you, one Letitia James, that the federal government has jurisdiction over this. Okay? All right? They have jurisdiction over who's in the country. They control migration. They control the borders. And this is why the Justice Department has every right to send all its people out after you, Letitia. Gosh. Letitia, honey, baby. Mike Davis is right. I think something could be coming your way. Former attorney for Trump.
Let me just say this to Big Tish James, the New York Attorney General. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump in his second term, because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time, and we will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights. And I promise you that. So think long and hard
about what you're doing. Donald Trump already shutting down the app that migrants would be using in Mexico to try to come here in order to stem the flow right now. He's also shut down the border in El Paso, Texas, and he made this clear. This is exactly what he was going to do. Yep, and in the meantime, you're not going to be coming here. That's his message. And you know what? I'm going to tell you this. It's actually already working. This is amazing. I want to take you to CNN earlier today saying, guess what? Things have kind of slowed down at the border.
The border is relatively quiet. I'm told that there are just between 1,100 to 1,300 crossings a day. That is far below when it was 6,000, 8,000, 12,000 before. So this is going to be a way to augment support along the U.S. southern border, but it also comes at a time when crossings are lower than where they've been before, and also as the administration has essentially sealed off the border to asylum seekers. Kate?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, border's been sealed off, and you're seeing a huge reduction in the number of people that are even trying to come here, because guess what? Somebody's there who actually cares, who's actually given a very different narrative. And guess what? You come here, you got a good shot at getting deported right away, and you're never coming back. I mean, this is so brand new. Brand new. Oh, by the way, we got some breaking news. He just declassified or is declassifying the JFK, RFK files. I want to get to that. But first, quick shout out for another one of our great sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show. They make this possible. They make this so that I can come to you free every day. So we love them. I love them because, by the way, they give me my vitamins. And I've been really healthy this winter. It's not easy for me. Like every winter, I get a cold. Seriously, like multiple colds. And I have 3 little ones, and I kind of blame them because, you know, they're out and about, and they bring home all kinds of viruses. They've all been sick this winter, repeatedly sick, and somehow mom is doing okay. Like, this is a miracle. Balance of nature. I swear, balance of nature. Oops, I'm getting excited, hitting the microphone and everything. Anyway, balanceofnature.com. You can get this too. You can get 35% off with my discount code. Just use my name, Trish. You're helping the show. You're helping yourself. All win-win-win. 1-800-246-8751 is their number. 1-800-246-8751. They have thousands of testimonials on their website, so you don't have to just take it from me. Or my kid's music teacher, who, by the way, was listening to the show and was like, oh, Trish, you take Balance of Nature too. I mean, yeah. He's like, I love it. I've been taking it for years. Leslie, one of our viewers here, I see her comments all the time. I actually saw her just earlier. She also takes it. So we love this stuff. It's really, really good. You can get it to 35% off, free shipping, and guess what? Money back guarantee, you know, just in case. Money back guarantee. Alphonse is in the house. I'm seeing so many familiar names. Good to see you, Alphonse. Jerry, good to have you here. Danny, Larry, all of you. Okay, We have some breaking news. Breaking right now, it has just crossed that Donald Trump is going to be declassifying the JFK, RFK files. That is expected to happen sometime within the next 15 days. He's ordering the release of these, so they will be declassified. We should get those sometime within the next 2 weeks. This is something he promised on the campaign trail, and it is something he promised there at the inauguration rally the night before he was named president. I'm telling you, you wonder why they didn't want this guy there. Whole host of reasons. One, he's getting rid of the networks, telling them they can't just spew their deep state garbage, and he's actually going to declassify some important stuff. Watch.
As a first step toward restoring transparency and accountability to government, we will also reverse the overclassification of government documents, and in the coming days, we are going to make public remaining records relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, his brother Robert Kennedy, as well as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and other topics of great public interest. It's all going to be released, Uncle Sam.
Well, I can't wait for that. That's going to be, you know what? I was saying to someone earlier, Donald Trump is so back, and I can feel it. I know it because, look, I reported on him throughout his entire tenure there for 4 years. And it was like every single day, the news cycle was just insane, right? And that's happening again. And I mean that in a very good way. It's wonderful because stuff is happening and we need stuff to happen. America is back in a spectacular way. Just look at the markets. Quick reminder, go to 76research.com, sign up for the 76 report, use code word dollar. Please do that because there's lots of good things coming and we write about it all the time. In fact, we were telling you about Oracle months ago. What happened to Oracle? Stock's way up. There's a couple other picks in there in some of our model portfolios. And I think also in the 76 report, they're now up 5 to 6% just this week alone because of the infrastructure play that he's making, as well as the AI investment. So there's lots going on in this country and it's like finally, and we're going to get this transparency that we so need. Of course, the trouble is if we figure out that it was the government that knocked these guys off, gosh darn it. I mean, I don't want to say anything yet, right? We all have our suspicions. You all have your theories, and we'll wait till we actually see what is in these documents, but I'm very interested to read them. And I think that the problem, once again, is just going to be that you're going to be in a world where you suddenly just really are questioning the government again. But that's where we've been, right? Because of what happened with COVID-19. Anthony Fauci saying, you don't need a mask. You don't need a mask. I remember this well. I've played this out. John LaPook on CBS News. He's like, are you sure? He's a doctor. He's like, are you really sure? He's like, nope, you don't need a mask. Turns out he said that. Why? Because he thought there was going to be a run on masks and they needed the masks for the hospital workers. And then, oh no, couldn't possibly have come from Wuhan, China. Only it did come from Wuhan, China. So you see where I'm going. I mean, they just lie to you. And I think that declassifying this information really signifies sort of a new age of accountability, that the government can't just lie to the people anymore. And the media is not there to spoon feed the lies, because you get people like me out there and others like us that are just independent and able to say exactly what we believe and exactly what we think. And we're going to dig in like no one else. Donald Trump making a big initiative, getting rid of DEI, no more DEI. And well, it's upset a lot of people. A lot of people, including those people over at Davos, by the way, because just a couple years ago, they did a whole thing about DEI. Like that was the whole reason for being back in 2022 at the World Economic Forum. Well, this is kind of tough, especially for one Joy Behar and her guest there. Oops, Joy Behar. I meant Joy Reid. Joy Reid on MSNBC. All these joyful people that aren't so joyful. Joy Reid on MSNBC and her guest are flipping out, and you're never going to believe who they're worried about most.
Return the Constitution to do his evil and wrongness.
Let's put some stuff up here. He was very excited about the end diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in the federal government. What's the impact?
Yeah, so that's obviously very bad. It's particularly evil to. I always think of prisoners, people who are incarcerated who have changed, who have transitioned. According to this, you're going to take trans women and put them in male prisons. what do we think is going to happen to them there?
Yeah.
That's not going to be a good day.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a thing that has real impact. There's also a real obvious equal protection challenge. And so again, Trump will do this. He will be sued. This is one of the ones that could be, if not completely stopped, delayed, but there will be people who suffer, unconscionable pain because of what he's doing, and not in the kind of like, oh, somebody just called Gracie George. No. These are people who are going to be hurt and physically assaulted because of Trump's executive order.
Two of the renamings, we were talking about it in the break, rename Mount Denali back to Mount McKinley, just as snot.
Oh, don't even get him started on that one, right? Denali, Mount McKinley. I'm sorry, like, you really think that's the first thing that comes to mind? The trans female prisoners? Prisoners being kind of one of the highlight words there. I mean, they're in prison because they committed a crime. But your biggest worry over in MSNBC is what it means for trans female prisoners. I mean, what about the poor kid growing up in Appalachia that's been working his tail off his entire life to try and get into a really good school and needs a scholarship for that really good school? Doesn't have 2 dimes to rub together, but turns out the wealthier kid from Massachusetts that happens to have a different skin color and is black gets a cakewalk of a ride, even though maybe that student doesn't have the same grade point average, right? So the poor kid in Appalachia gets completely screwed because you're choosing based on color of someone's skin. I mean, that's just unconstitutional. That's just flat out discrimination. And Harvard had to hear that from the Supreme Court. But over on MSNBC, they're not taking that angle. No, they're taking the angle that somehow it is really, really bad for transgenders in prison. This is just the scariest. I'm like, okay, they're in prison, guys. You know what? This is why you lost. This is exactly why you lost, because people are so sick of you looking out for everybody except for the hardworking Americans that make this country happen. You're going to continue to lose if this is the narrative you're going to spout. So you know what? You do that all day long because it's going to be MAGA for as long as the eye can see. We're talking 28. We're talking 4 years after that. Hey, they're getting Barron ready to run. All right? So we're going to have a good long run because you stupid people have stupid ideas. Listen, it's part of it's coming out of academia. I'm just going to give a plug for a wonderful organization that I am so happy to partner with. It's called the Herzog Foundation. Herzog Foundation, I talk a lot about how our nation's public schools are corrupting our kids, putting all these really weird ideas. I mean, I have a friend whose kid is in 5th grade. And she told me, actually this happened when he was in 4th grade, that he had to actually say what gender he was, like what his gender preferences were when they went around the school. And he had to write this down, and he had to say whether or not he could talk about this at home, because God forbid, like if your parents are not okay with your gender thing, well, somehow the school's going to intervene with the government and God knows what to get in the way. And don't forget, Biden signed off on that executive order saying that kids under the age of, or over the age of 12 and over, didn't need any kind of parental consent on their medical stuff. I mean, it's messed up. So clearly, like, schools are messed up and they're doing really scary kinds of things. And I would say, look, if you're somebody who has sort of true American values, if you have Christian values, then you're kind of caught in this very bad spot, which is why I love this organization. Herzog Foundation is committed to having Christian education for our youth, K through 12. And they can guide you if you're interested in this, like if you have kids or if you have grandkids and you're just kind of, what do I do? What do I do? Where do I find a good Christian alternative to public school? Herzog has a ton of information. They are really just prolific in terms of their publications as well. They have something called The Lion, which is their new podcast, or rather The Lion is the website. They also have a new podcast called Making the Leap. And there's all kinds of information and advice for people that are looking to make that switch. And it's not an easy thing to do, I get it. But if you're interested in moving your kids or your grandkids or you have friends that are interested in this, check out the Herzog Foundation today. Donald Trump is giving a big FU to Davos. The World Economic Forum, where all the elites around the world go over there and they talk about equity and this, that, and the other. It always cracks me up because you have to have a certain badge and you only get into certain parties and certain places if you're wearing a certain badge. So as much as they go on about equity, it has nothing to do with equity and everything to do with status. Well, Donald Trump gave him a piece of his mind here today by video.
Something no person in the world has ever.
Actually, this is really good. I'm going to show you what Donald Trump had to say. But before I do, Donald Trump has so clearly won. And everyone at Davos knows it. So he went out there and he did this giant FU, right, to Davos by video. But before he did, they had this little seminar and they were talking on stage about all that had happened. And this is just priceless. This is great. I want you to hear it. They're like, we lost. He won.
Trump has done something no person in the world has ever done before. A dead man, a dead politician, has risen. Somebody who, 4 years ago at Davos, he's buried, dead politically, known to me. He's now returned. This is the greatest comeback in political history of a politician. And then, therefore, he thinks he can do anything.
We need to also factor in not only who's won, which is Trump, but who's lost, which is to say us. And I guess I would throw into that the epitome of the us who is losing here is Europe. That the European Union and by and large its member states have misread the direction where events were going. The causes that it is interested in, climate, human rights, some others, as well as the methods of diplomacy that it prefers, are simply being gradually kind of marginalized as something new, not necessarily something better, but something new moves into the center.
Okay, so they know it. They know they're done. They know Trump has won. He knows it too, and he went and did this video conference with them. It was fabulous.
America is back and open for business, and this week I'm also taking swift action to stop the invasion at our southern border. They allowed people to come in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It was ridiculous. I decided and declared to do, and very, very importantly, a national emergency on our border, immediately halted all entry of illegal border crossers, of which there were many, and began promptly returning the illegal trespassers back to the place from which they came. That action, as you've probably seen, has already started very strongly. I've deployed active duty U.S. military and National Guard troops to the border to assist in repelling the invasion. It was really an invasion.
An invasion. What do you know? Well, he's making lots of changes. And he wants everybody else to start making changes too. There was this great moment when the Bank of America CEO got called out on this global stage because there were a lot of reports from conservatives that they were getting their accounts canceled at Bank of America. There were also reports, don't forget, that the federal government had asked various banks to go in and look at certain people's profiles to see if they had shopped at Dick's Sporting Goods. It's like, careful, don't shop at Dick's Sporting Goods or you're going to be somehow on the radar of the Biden administration. Well, Trump, he knows this. And he called Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America, out right to his face. Watch.
By the way, speaking of you, and you've done a fantastic job, but I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business, and I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what, but you and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives, because what you're doing is wrong.
What you're doing is wrong.
Mr. President, I'll say that your friend Gianni said hello, told me to tell you hello, and we look forward to sponsoring the World Cup when it comes, both this summer for the club and next year. So thank you for getting that for the United States.
What was that? I don't think Brian knew what to say. Jonathan Mason, thank you. Shout out to Jonathan Mason. Thank you for your support. We always appreciate that. I try to see those in real time as they go by. So thank you for your support, Jonathan. Look, Brian, I think he just didn't know what to say other than, hey, you know, we're going to get together on some sponsorship thing together. I mean, that was bizarre. But Trump is right. You know, this is something that you've heard echoed in the conservative community. There's been a lot of concern about it. I know my friend Dinesh D'Souza ran into some banking challenges. I'm not sure if Bank of America might have been his bank, but I don't want to misquote him. But he has run into some things, and it's something that I've heard from a lot of conservatives, that they just make things really, really difficult. And so that has to change. Like, you cannot cut off half the country. You just can't, okay? You can't do that. You know, I think Jamie Dimon recognized this a while back. In fact, just last year at Davos, he made a really good point about that. You can't just shun 70-some-odd million people.
I wish the Democrats would think a little more carefully when they talk about MAGA, you know, and if you travel this country, you know, and the country's unbelievable. We took our bus trip this year, and Leslie Picker was on Spokane and Boise and Bozeman. People are growing. They're hungry to grow. They're innovating. It's everywhere. It's not just Silicon Valley. So we've got this great hand, but when people say MAGA, they're actually looking at people voting for Trump, and they think they're voting, and they're basically scapegoating them, that you are like him. But I don't think they're voting for Trump because of his family values. And if you look, just take a step back, be honest. He was kind of right about NATO, kind of right about immigration. Mm-hmm. He grew the economy quite well.
China virus.
Tax reform worked. Yeah. He was right about some of China. I don't like what he did.
No, I said China virus.
Yeah, I understand. He may have been right. And I don't like how he said things about Mexico. But he wasn't wrong about some of these critical issues. And that's why they're voting for him. And I think people should be a little more respectful of our fellow citizens. And when you guys have people up here, you should always ask the why. Not like it's a binary thing. You're supporting Trump, you're not supporting Trump. Why are you supporting Trump?
It's hard to hate 75 million of your fellow Americans.
I agree.
It's done crazy.
And, the Democrats have done a pretty good job with the deplorables, hugging onto their Bibles and their beer and their guns. I mean, really? Can we just stop that stuff and actually grow up and treat other people with respect and listen to them a little bit? And I do think the economy will affect. And I think this negative talk about MAGA is going to hurt Biden's election campaign.
And it did. It certainly did. You know, you got to actually run on something. You can't just run on, hating the other side. I want to go back to the full exchange here. The Bank of America CEO, who suddenly is playing reporter. He's got an opportunity to ask Donald Trump questions there on that grand stage. You heard the punchline. Trump goes right after him. But nonetheless, there were some interesting things that were shared. Let's go to that now.
Now I'll go to another CEO that you know very well, Brian Moynihan, the CEO and chair of Bank of America.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, and congratulations, and obviously an eventful week for you and your family. If you remember 5 years ago, you came here and we walked among 150 CEOs from all over the world, and you engaged with them about your policies and your procedures. This year, you're not here, and yet this week was eventful from the orders that you mentioned earlier, literally a wave of orders coming out on immigration, on trade, and many other matters. And so, as a representative of the United States here, we got a lot of questions about what does all this mean and how would the president square this with his clear focus on growth, prosperity, market growth, stock market growth, a good bond market, and bringing down prices. So how do you think about the impact of all these orders and how fast they come out and how you're going to balance them with that scorecard of being successful in both continuing GDP growth, bringing down inflation, and also having a good stock price?
Down to 21%, the corporate tax. And it was actually, if you look at state and city, it was in many cases much higher than 40%. I got it down to 21%. And now we're going to bring it down from 21 to 15% if, there's a big if you make your product in the U.S. So we're going to have the lowest, just about the lowest rate. It'll be, the 21 is on the low side worldwide. The 15 is about as low as it gets. And by far the lowest of a large country, a large, rich, powerful country by far, not even a contest. So we're going to bring it down to 15% if you make your product in the USA. So that's going to create a tremendous buzz. We're also probably going back to the 1 year deduction where we deduct, we did that originally, and That was amazing what the impact that had, the 1 year deduction, which built up over a period of time and then it expires. But we're going to go back to that when we do the renewal of the Trump tax plan. We have to get Democrats to approve it. But, if the Democrats didn't approve it, I don't know how they can survive with about a 45% tax increase, because that's what it would be. And so I think they're going to do. We've been working along with them pretty well. I think it's very hard for a political group to say, let's charge people 45% more. So I think we're in good shape, but we're actually doing a reduction for business and small businesses where you're going to bring it down to 15%, which is really something. And by the way, speaking of you, and you've done a fantastic job, but I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business. And I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what, but you and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives, because what you're doing is wrong.
Mr. President, I'll say that your friend Gianni said hello, told me to tell you hello, and we look forward to sponsoring the World Cup when it comes, both this summer for the club and next year. So thank you for getting that for the United States.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Again, just so weird. I just want to say, Sun Tzu Me, thank you so much. We got a few of those super chats today, so thank you so much. I do appreciate your generosity. I guess that's your third super on a live stream, so thank you so much. Quick reminder, guys, you know what? 76research.com, my company, my financial research company. I started with my dear friend Rob. Rob is brilliant. He's been 20-some odd years on Wall Street as a stock picker, running mutual funds. You can see, actually, these numbers are even better. I got to get the new numbers out because we're coming out at the end of January, so we'll be able to publish some new numbers, and they're just really stellar. Listen, good stuff ahead. And it's not being controlled by the WEF, it's being controlled by pure markets, and that's a big difference. So go to 76research.com, sign up for the 76 report code word dollar. Look at those model portfolios. I want you to do that too. Okay, this is really kind of an amazing story. Carrie Underwood, I have so much respect for. I mean, she just did a bang-up job, right? She had to sing a cappella. All of a sudden, I don't know what was going on with the tech stuff. Somebody trying to sabotage her. I don't know, but you know what? She can't be sabotaged because she's that good. And it was actually just this beautiful moment. But now she's actually in crisis talks because she dared to go and sing at the inauguration. How crazy is that? So she's on American Idol. She's like one of the judges on it. And now they're really worried that people are not going to tune in, or contestants are mad. Take a look here. Insiders are claiming that, you know what, there are concerns contestants may feel uncomfortable, which could prove problematic for the show's values and its ratings. Idol contestants come from a wide range of diverse backgrounds, and so do the people who work on the show. Oh, I get it. It's the people that work on the show that are mad, right? There are concerns that her apparent political stance might make some contestants feel uncomfortable. My gosh. Like, if anything, didn't you guys get the feeling that Carrie Underwood performing there a cappella, asking everybody to join in, and you saw Hillary Clinton singing and Biden sort of trying to sing and Trump singing, and the only one who apparently didn't know the words was Kamala Harris. She's the only one not really singing. But how amazing was that? If there was any greater moment of unity, the tech equipment doesn't work and she's got to sing this thing solo and everyone joins in, I get goosebumps. I mean, it was amazing, right? In crisis talks for her career, because she stood up there and sang for our country. Congratulations to Carrie Underwood. I mean, she's fantastic. And yet you get these idiots, like these women at The View, and I'm telling you, this show's got to go, that are attacking her because she dares to do something really great.
Tend to skew left-leaning, so she's overnight going to become an icon of MAGA and the American right. She's probably going to make a lot of money off of it, so I get why she did it. I say. I mean, right? It is country music. I think at
I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't do it, even though I can't sing. You would not sing? No, I would not. I would not normalize him. And she says, I love our country. How do you love your country and support and normalize somebody who was a convicted felon who really wants to destroy the country, in my opinion? I don't understand how you say you love your country at the same time as you normalize this convicted felon, which I can say now every day.
A lot of my family voted for Trump. They love the country and vote for him. I think that people make these decisions for a lot of reasons.
Okay, fine.
No, you do what you do. Listen, it's like...
You know what's going on?
People do what they do.
Someone is trying to hurt her. So there's these publications that keep coming out. Carrie Underwood's list of demands for Trump inauguration performance revealed after she threw a hissy fit. Okay, the list of demands included things like tickets for her family or allowing her hairdresser to be there with her. Certain, requirements on the tech front, which clearly they weren't able to do. Somebody is trying to hurt her. I mean, this is why this article came out. Carrie Underwood had a hissy fit after her performance at Donald Trump's inauguration. You know what? She was a class act. And these people that are planting these stories are out to get her for some reason. Maybe it's another judge on American Idol that wants to have a higher profile. Maybe it's somebody who thinks they can become the next judge if they can just knock Carrie off the show. Or maybe it's the Hollywood machine at work that doesn't want somebody who might be somewhat aligned with the MAGA conservative movement because she dared to sing America the Beautiful at the inauguration. Give me a break. This is just ridiculous that we're even having this conversation. But you got the Joy Behars of the world fueling it. It could be people within the Hollywood system that do not want her to succeed in any way. So they're trying to make her seem like a jerk to anybody in MAGA. They're trying to make her career seem like it's on the line because nobody wants to be associated with American Idol if Carrie Underwood is there. This is bonkers, okay? And what makes it even more bonkers is that you got lefties like, Ariana Grande, who are piling on as well. Ariana Grande liking a post that someone put out that was dissing Carrie Underwood. Again, she's singing a cappella, right? And yet Ariana has to like this thing that's like mocking. Like, how does Ariana even have time? Don't you have like a job? Don't you like need to work on your Wicked stuff and maybe promote that a little bit more? She played Glinda in Wicked, and she was actually pretty good. But you know what? That was all finely tuned in a production studio. Remember, Carrie was singing with not so much as a piano, no backup, no tape recorder, not even a pitch pipe to help her. And she had to sing that all on her own. Look, I mean, wild. And she did a terrific job, an absolutely terrific job. But there's this one person that posted on Instagram this. You're like, I'm keeping you up on the gossip, right? You need to know all this stuff. It's actually kind of relevant, and Candace Owens factors into this too. It's wild. Okay, so this person is on Instagram, and they say Kamala Harris evoking Coco Montrese. Girl, find the note. Watching Carrie Underwood at today's chilling inauguration. So I didn't follow that. Full disclosure, I don't know who Coco Montrese is. I don't know what girl find the note means. So I went to my trusty little ChatGPT and I learned that Coco Montrese is the stage name of Martin Cooper, a well-known American drag performer, entertainer, and television personality. She gained significant recognition as a contestant on RuPaul's Drag Race, appearing on season 5. So then I went and did some more digging because, again, they're referencing Coco in this post, and this is what I found. That is Coco. So, wow. Coco Montrese was the one that this particular post was talking about. So again, what does that mean? Apparently Coco, when Coco's not dressed as Coco, and I don't know what was the name that Coco goes by? Martin. So when Coco is going by Martin, Coco as Martin said this, girl, find the note. And it was like some kind of, like you're out of tune reference.
Girl, find the note. Find the note.
Okay, I'm just going to say he looks better as Martin. Oh, wait, no, I got that backwards. Better as Coco. Okay, like, if we want to be honest. All right, so Coco's stirring this whole thing up. Just so you know, like, Coco's not necessarily the nicest person. Coco had something to say about Candace Owens a while back. This is so gross. This is like a few weeks ago, attacking Candace Owens, suggesting that her husband's gay. I mean, this is bad. I don't even want to read this, but you see it on the screen. She's saying, oh, Candace wanted to be white so bad she ended up a white kitchen trash bag with ties. Okay, whatever. I mean, so I guess I go back to this. Why is Ariana Grande liking this kind of stuff? Why does Ariana Grande want to take down Carrie Underwood? I mean, jealous much? You think? Because maybe actually Carrie's going to have a whole audience, massive audience of people that are supporting her. I mean, Ariana's talented. I'll give her that. I saw her in Wicked, and I thought she did a decent job. She was kind of singing like a high coloratura soprano, which sort of surprised me. I didn't realize she could do that. I think the girl can sing, but whatever. I mean, then I saw the press tour. You don't want to see it. It's so annoying, and it's so woke, and it's so this, that, and the other. But, like, come on, have some class. I mean, she's clearly a catty, rhymes with itch. Yeah, that's what I'd call her. That's what you call a kicker story, right? Like, we gotta have a little fun on this show, right? We always have fun on this show. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, hit the bell so you know when I'm here. And please, guys, do me one favor. Go over. This is for you to invest in MAGA or 76research.com. Invest in MAGA totally free. Just sign up because we get names in there. We get sectors in there. We want to show you how it's done. We want to help you build something for the future. I created this because I knew so many people were kind of being left in the dark. I mean, you talk about the regular political media having a bias and agenda. Financial media is no different. And they don't tell you the truth. They tell you only what you want to hear in that moment in time. And you know what? You got to have a bigger time horizon than that. You can't just be telling me, oh my gosh, the sky is falling when the market is falling out of bed. What did I do in 2020, in March 2020, that got me in so much trouble? I was like, this is crazy. The market's tanking 2,000 points because CNN has turned COVID into their plain story. I mean, come on. Everybody's overreacting. And it was a buying opportunity. I actually bought. And continued buying because that's when you want to get in. But no, the financial media will jump in bed with the regular media. Oh, the sky is falling. We got to be smarter than that. So this is a big part of why I created this with, again, my dear friend who's been on Wall Street so many years and really knows the ins and outs and valuations on stocks. So all of it's doing really well. I want to be able to bring you some of those performance numbers, but go to the website. You can check them out, 76research.com, or get the free stuff at investinmaga.com. It is so good to have you. I mean, we got a huge crowd today. This is wonderful. Make sure you subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. I can't tell you enough. You get to subscribe and then you get to hit the bell because we come on at different times, but I am here faithfully every single day for you guys. You know what? This is important. We're living on the front lines of history and I'm here with you every day for it. I'll see you tomorrow.